The living room went dead silent the second I pressed play. My daughter Clarissa sat frozen on the couch, her phone still clutched in her hand like a lifeline. Martin, my son-in-law, leaned forward with that fake smile plastered across his face, the one that never quite reached his eyes, the one that made my skin crawl every time I saw it. The kids had just wandered back inside from playing in the yard, their little faces flushed and curious as they peeked around the corner to see what Grandma was doing with the TV. "Mom, what is this?" Clarissa asked, her voice tight with confusion and something else. "Fear, maybe." She should have been afraid. I didn't answer. I just stood there by the television, remote in hand, and let the screen do all the talking for me. The first clip flickered to life on my old TV. There was Martin, clear as day, sneaking into my office at 2 in the morning. The timestamp glowed in the corner like a neon sign. October 15th, 2:17 a.m. He was bent over my desk, his phone's flashlight illuminating my property deed as he snapped photo after photo. His face was calm, methodical, focused. Like he'd done this sort of thing before. Like stealing from a sick old woman was just another Tuesday night for him. Martin's smile vanished like smoke. His jaw went slack, and I watched the color drain from his face in real time. "What the hell?" he started, half rising from his seat, but the video kept rolling without mercy. Next clip. Clarissa this time. My own daughter. Sitting right here at my kitchen table where I'd fed her breakfast every morning of her childhood, a sheet of tracing paper spread out in front of her like some kind of criminal blueprint. My signature, the one I'd been signing for 40 years, the one that represented everything I'd built, repeated over and over again in her careful handwriting. She was practicing, perfecting it, getting ready to forge documents that would steal my home right out from under me. Her lips moved as she concentrated, completely unaware that my hidden camera was recording every single stroke of that pen. "Mom, I can explain." Clarissa's voice cracked like thin ice, but I held up my hand to silence her. "Shoo. Best part's coming." Have you ever trusted someone so completely that the thought of their betrayal felt physically impossible? Drop a comment and let me know, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button because this story gets wild and you won't want to miss what happens next. The final clip started playing. Audio only this time, but crystal clear. Martin's voice came through the TV speakers like concentrated poison, each word hitting the room like a physical blow. After Thanksgiving, she goes straight to the nursing home. Clarissa's response followed, weak and guilty and unmistakably her. "Martin, don't say it like that. It's not like we're throwing her away." "Oh, come on, Clarissa. The woman can barely walk. We'll tell her it's for her own good. You said she already signed those papers, right?" "Yes. She thought they were for her health insurance renewal." "Perfect. The property will be ours before Christmas." Hi viewers. Kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. I watched their faces as they listened to their own voices plotting my complete destruction. Martin's skin turned the color of old newspaper left out in the rain. Clarissa started shaking her head back and forth like she could erase reality itself, tears already forming in her eyes and spilling down her cheeks. That's out of context," Martin stammered, his voice climbing higher with each word, cracking with panic. "Eunice, we were worried about you, we were trying to help." "Worried?" I said softly, calmly, my voice steady as a rock. "Is that what you call forging my signature? Photographing my deed in the middle of the night? Planning to steal my house and dump me in some facility?" The grandkids stood in the doorway now, their eyes wide as dinner plates, their little hands gripping the doorframe. They didn't understand everything that was happening, but they understood enough. They could feel the tension crackling through the air like electricity before a storm. Their father was in trouble. Big, serious, adult trouble. Martin stood up fast, too fast, his chair scraping loud against my hardwood floors. His face had gone from pale to red, sweat beading on his forehead and upper lip. "This is insane. You're recording us? In your own house? That's illegal. You can't just spy on people. This won't hold up anywhere." "Actually," I said, pulling my phone from my cardigan pocket nice and slow, "Detective Harold Freeman from the Savannah Police Department helped me set everything up personally. Made sure it was all completely legal and admissible in court. He's got copies of everything you just watched. So does my lawyer, Richard Chun. And so does the district attorney's office downtown." That's when Martin's eyes rolled back in his head. His knees buckled like someone had cut his strings with scissors. He dropped straight down onto my good living room rug with a heavy thud that shook the lamp on the side table and rattled the picture frames on the mantel. Clarissa screamed like someone had stabbed her. "Martin! Martin, oh my God, somebody help!" She threw herself down beside him, shaking his shoulders hard, slapping his cheeks, checking for a pulse with trembling fingers. The kids started crying, scared and confused. I just stood there, remote control still gripped in my hand, watching the chaos unfold around me like I was watching someone else's life through a window. Outside, I heard it. Faint at first, then growing louder with each passing second. Sirens. Clarissa's head snapped up, her tear-streaked face twisted with panic and pure rage. "What did you do? Mom, what the hell did you do to us?" I looked down at my daughter, the girl I'd raised alone after her father died when she was 12, the child I'd worked 2 jobs for so she could have nice things, the woman I'd sacrificed everything for, and I felt nothing but cold, clear, crystalline certainty. "I pressed play on the truth, baby," I said quietly. "And now you're going to face every bit of it." The sirens were getting closer, just seconds away now. My name is Eunice Davenport, and I learned a long time ago that love doesn't guarantee loyalty. I was born 74 years ago in a small wooden house on the outskirts of Savannah, Georgia. The kind of house where the floorboards creaked when you walked and the screen door never quite closed right. Every morning smelled like magnolia blossoms and the lye soap my mother used to scrub everything until it shined. We didn't have much, but what we had was ours, and that meant something back then. I met Henry Davenport when I was 19 years old at a church picnic. He was tall and quiet, with hands that were rough from construction work but gentle when he held mine. We got married 6 months later in that same church, with 20 people watching and my mother crying into her handkerchief the whole time. Henry promised me a good life, and for 23 years, he kept that promise. Then one Tuesday morning in March, he dropped dead of a heart attack while carrying lumber at a job site. Clarissa was only 12 years old. I remember the funeral like it was yesterday. Clarissa stood next to me in a black dress that was too big for her, her hand squeezing mine so hard I thought my fingers might break. She looked up at me with those big brown eyes, Henry's eyes, and whispered, "What are we going to do now, Mama?" I didn't have an answer. I was 37 years old with a 6th grade education, a mortgage, and a daughter to raise. Henry's life insurance barely covered the funeral costs. The construction company sent a sympathy card and a check for $200 like that made up for taking my husband. So I did what I had to do. I got 2 jobs. During the day, I cleaned offices at the county courthouse, scrubbing toilets and mopping floors while lawyers and judges walked past me like I was invisible. At night, I baked pies for Martha's Diner on Route 17, pecan, apple, sweet potato, whatever they needed. I'd get home around midnight, sleep 4 hours, then do it all over again. Every single day. No weekends off. No vacations. No time for myself. But Clarissa, she got everything. New school clothes every fall. A backpack that wasn't falling apart. Hot meals every night even when I was so tired I could barely stand. I hired Mrs. Patterson from down the street to tutor her in math because I couldn't help with homework past basic arithmetic. When Clarissa turned 16 and all her friends were getting cars, I saved up for 8 months and bought her a used Honda Civic. It wasn't fancy, but it was reliable and it was hers. She cried when I gave her the keys. Happy tears. She hugged me so tight and said, "Mama, you're the best mother in the whole world. I'm going to take care of you when you're old. I promise." I believed her. God help me, I believed every word. When it came time for college, Clarissa wanted to go to the University of Georgia. Out-of-state tuition, dorm fees, meal plans, it was a fortune. But I made it work. I picked up extra shifts, stopped buying new clothes for myself, ate leftovers from the diner instead of cooking at home. For 4 years, I worked myself to the bone so my daughter could have the education I never got. She graduated with honors. I was so proud I thought my heart might burst right there in that stadium. She wore her cap and gown and walked across that stage, and when they called her name, I stood up and clapped until my hands hurt. All those sleepless nights, all those aching feet, all those times I ate crackers for dinner so she could have real food, it was all worth it in that moment. That's what I told myself anyway. After graduation, Clarissa moved to Atlanta for a job at some marketing firm. She called every Sunday at first, telling me about her apartment and her co-workers and the city life. I loved hearing her voice, loved knowing she was making something of herself. Then the calls became every other Sunday. Then once a month. Then only on holidays. That's when she met Martin. She brought him home for Christmas 3 years ago. He showed up in an expensive car wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He shook my hand with this firm grip like he was closing a business deal, looked around my house with this expression I couldn't quite read, and spent the whole visit talking about his job in real estate investment and how much money he was making. "Mrs. Davenport," he said over dinner, "you've done an amazing job raising Clarissa. She's told me all about your sacrifices. Very admirable." The way he said admirable made it sound like he meant pathetic. But Clarissa was glowing. She looked at him like he'd hung the moon and stars just for her. She was happy, or at least she seemed happy, and that's all I wanted. So I smiled and nodded and pretended not to notice how he winced when he used my bathroom or how he whispered something to Clarissa about updating this place. They got married 6 months later in Atlanta. I wasn't involved in the planning. Clarissa said they wanted something small and modern, nothing traditional. I wore my Sunday best and sat in the front row and watched my daughter marry a man I didn't trust. But mothers don't get to choose, do they? We just love and hope and pray it all works out. It didn't work out. After the wedding, Clarissa changed. She started talking differently, using words like portfolio and assets and investment opportunities. She stopped asking how I was doing and started asking questions about my house. How much was it worth? Did I have a reverse mortgage? What was my plan for retirement? Had I updated my will? At first, I thought she was just concerned. Being a good daughter. Making sure her aging mother had things in order. But then Martin started showing up unannounced when Clarissa was supposedly too busy with work. He'd ask to use the bathroom and somehow end up in my office. He'd offer to help with paperwork and spend too much time looking through my files. I'm old, but I'm not stupid. That's when I called Harold Freeman. He'd been a detective with the Savannah Police Department for 30 years before he retired. We'd known each other since high school. He'd taken me to junior prom before I met Henry. He'd stayed single, married to the job, and now he spent his retirement helping old friends with problems the police couldn't solve yet. "Eunice," he said when I explained my suspicions, "you want me to look into your own daughter?" "I want you to prove me wrong," I told him. "Please, Harold. Prove me wrong." He couldn't. 2 weeks later, He showed up at my door with a grim expression and security camera equipment in his truck. "We need to set these up," he said quietly. "And Eunice? I'm sorry." That's when I knew for certain. My daughter, my baby girl, the child I'd sacrificed everything for, was planning to betray me. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and gray, the kind of November day where the sky looks like dirty dishwater and the wind cuts right through your coat. I was up at 5, same as always. My knees ached when I stood, and my hands trembled a little as I tied my robe, but I pushed through it. I had cooking to do. A whole Thanksgiving feast for people who were planning to throw me away like garbage. The irony wasn't lost on me. I pulled out my grandmother's old recipes, the ones written on index cards stained with decades of use. Sweet potato casserole with the marshmallow topping. Green bean almondine. Cornbread dressing with sage. A 20-pound turkey that took up half my refrigerator. And Martin's favorite, bourbon cranberry sauce that he always bragged about to his friends like he'd discovered it himself. My hands shook as I peeled potatoes. Not from age. From anger. They arrived at noon, pulling into my driveway in Martin's black Mercedes that gleamed even under the cloudy sky. Clarissa got out first, wearing designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my electric bill. The kids tumbled out after her, sweet babies who had no idea their parents were monsters. Martin came last, carrying 2 bottles of expensive wine like he was doing me some great favor. He walked up my porch steps with that confident stride, that smug expression, like he already owned the place. "Eunice," he said, "not Mom or Mother Davenport, just my first name like we were business associates. Something smells amazing." "Just doing what I always do," I replied, forcing a smile. "Come on in before you catch cold." The hugs were wrong. That's the best way I can describe it. Clarissa's embrace was stiff, her arms barely touching my back. She smelled like expensive perfume that made my nose itch. When she pulled away, her smile didn't reach her eyes. It was the kind of smile you give a stranger at the grocery store, polite but empty. "Mom, you look tired," she said, studying my face like I was a problem to be solved. "Are you sure you should have cooked all this? You know what the doctor said about overdoing it." "I'm fine, baby. Just happy to have my family here." Martin set the wine bottles on my counter with more force than necessary. "Well, we're happy to be here. For now, anyway." There it was again. That phrase. For now. Like my time was running out. Like this was my last Thanksgiving in my own home. I wanted to confront him right then. Wanted to scream and rage and throw him out. But I'd learned patience over the years. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people think they've already won. The kids ran off to the living room, and I heard them turning on the television. Clarissa followed me into the kitchen, pretending to help but mostly just standing around looking at her phone. I watched her out of the corner of my eye as I basted the turkey. She was texting someone, her thumbs moving fast, a little smile playing on her lips. "Everything okay?" I asked, keeping my voice light. She jumped like I'd caught her stealing. "What?" "Oh, yes. Just work stuff. You know how it is." I knew exactly how it was. She was texting Martin, probably coordinating their next move. Planning how to get me to sign more papers. Figuring out which nursing home had the cheapest rates so they could pocket more of my money. Lunch was tense despite my best efforts. I'd set the table with my good china, the set Henry and I got as a wedding gift. I'd even put out cloth napkins and lit candles like this was a celebration instead of a funeral for our family. Martin dominated the conversation, talking about real estate markets and investment properties and some deal he'd closed last week. He spoke loudly, confidently, like he was the most important person in the room. The kids picked at their food, bored. Clarissa nodded along, playing the supportive wife. I just ate my turkey and watched them, studied them, memorized every fake smile and hollow laugh. After the main course, Clarissa cleared her throat. Here it comes, I thought. Mom, she started, her voice dripping with fake concern, Martin and I have been talking. We're worried about you living here all alone. I set down my fork slowly. Oh. It's just, you had that stroke last year. You're not as steady on your feet. This house is too big for one person. All these stairs, the yard work, the maintenance. She reached across the table like she was going to take my hand, but stopped short. We want what's best for you. Martin jumped in, his voice smooth as oil. We've been researching some excellent facilities. Senior living communities where you'd have round-the-clock care, activities, people your own age to socialize with. You mean a nursing home, I said flatly. We prefer to call it assisted living, Clarissa said quickly. There's one called Greenfield Residence about 30 minutes from here. It's beautiful, Mom. Right by a lake. You'd have your own room, meals provided, no stress about bills or upkeep. We could have you moved in by next week, Martin added, watching me carefully. Get you settled before the holidays. Before Christmas. Before they sold my house and split the money. Just like I'd heard them planning. The kids were watching now, sensing something was wrong even if they couldn't understand what. I looked at my grandchildren's innocent faces and felt my heart break all over again. They deserved better than parents like this. That's very thoughtful of you both, I said carefully. But I'm comfortable here. This is my home. Mom, be reasonable, Clarissa started. I am being reasonable. I'm 74, not dead. I can take care of myself just fine. Martin's jaw tightened. I saw the flash of anger in his eyes before he covered it with that fake smile. Eunice, we're just trying to help. Clarissa tells me you've been having trouble with paperwork, bills, keeping track of things. Is that what she told you? It's true, isn't it? Clarissa said, her voice rising slightly. You asked me to help with your insurance renewal. You said you couldn't read the fine print anymore. She was twisting it, making it sound like I was incompetent when really I just needed reading glasses. But that's what liars do. They take truth and bend it until it serves their purpose. I think, I said, standing up from the table, that before we discuss my future, we should all watch something together. Clarissa blinked. What? A film. Something special I put together this week. Call it a family presentation. Martin and Clarissa exchanged a glance. Quick, nervous, guilty. Mom, we're in the middle of lunch, Clarissa protested. Lunch can wait. This can't. I walked toward the living room, my steps steady despite my aching knees. Come on now. You're going to want to see this. I heard them following behind me, their footsteps reluctant and heavy. The house was quiet except for the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I should have been asleep. It was past 11, and my body was exhausted from cooking all day. But sleep wouldn't come. Something felt wrong, like that feeling you get before a storm when the air pressure changes and every animal knows to take shelter. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the old house settle around me. The kids were asleep upstairs in what used to be Clarissa's childhood bedroom. I'd heard their little voices earlier, excited about staying at Grandma's house, not knowing their parents were plotting to take it away. Then I heard the voices. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Just the house creaking, the wind outside, my old ears playing tricks. But no, these were real voices. Low and urgent, coming from somewhere downstairs. The walls in this house are thin, a fact I'd forgotten until that moment. Sound travels through the old plaster like whispers through paper. I sat up slowly, my heart racing now. My bedroom door was cracked open just a few inches. I'd left it that way in case the kids needed me during the night. Through that crack, the voices became clearer. Martin's voice. Deep and controlled. After Thanksgiving, she goes straight to the nursing home. I stopped breathing. Clarissa responded, her voice tight with stress. Martin, don't say it like that. It's not like we're throwing her away. Every muscle in my body went rigid. This couldn't be happening. Not my daughter. Not my baby girl. Oh, come on, Clarissa. Martin's tone was dismissive, almost amused. The woman can barely walk. We'll tell her it's for her own good. Medical necessity. You said she already signed those papers, right? Papers. What papers? Yes, Clarissa said, and I heard the guilt in her voice even through the wall. She thought they were for her health insurance renewal. She didn't even read them, just signed where I pointed. My chest went tight. 3 weeks ago, Clarissa had brought over a stack of documents. Said my insurance company needed updated signatures, that it was just routine paperwork. I trusted her. Put on my reading glasses, signed where she indicated, handed them back without a second thought. Because she was my daughter. Because I'd raised her to be honest. Because I never imagined she'd betray me. Perfect. Martin sounded pleased with himself. The property will be ours before Christmas. We can list it in January when the market picks up. This place is sitting on prime real estate. We're looking at maybe $400,000 easy. After we pay off the reverse mortgage scam we set up, split it down the middle, that's close to $200,000 each. $200,000. That's what I was worth to them. That's what 40 years of mortgage payments and home improvements and memories added up to in their eyes. What about Mom? Clarissa asked quietly. What about her? She'll be in Greenfield, playing bingo with the other old folks. She won't even remember this house after a few months. That's what happens with stroke patients. Memory goes first. I hadn't had memory problems. My stroke had affected my left side, made my hand weak, caused some trouble with walking. But my mind was sharp as ever. He was lying to justify what they were doing. Or maybe he actually believed it. Maybe that made it easier for him to sleep at night. I just feel bad, Clarissa said. She worked so hard for this house. She raised me here. And now it's time for her to move on. Clarissa, don't go soft on me now. We've talked about this. Your mother is old, she's sick, and she needs professional care. We're doing her a favor. And if we happen to benefit financially, well, that's just smart family planning. Smart family planning. He made stealing from your mother-in-law sound like a TED Talk. I slid out of bed as quietly as I could. My legs were shaking, not from weakness but from rage. Pure, cold rage that started in my stomach and spread through my whole body like ice water in my veins. I moved to the door, pressed my ear against the crack, needing to hear more. Needing to know just how deep this betrayal went. When do we tell her? Clarissa asked. Tomorrow. After lunch, when everyone's relaxed. We'll frame it as concern for her well-being. Maybe even get a little emotional about it. You cry easily, use that. Make her think we're heartbroken about the decision, but it's necessary. What if she says no? Martin laughed. Actually laughed. She already signed the papers, sweetheart. Power of attorney, property transfer, the whole package. We had it notarized and everything. Even if she says no legally, we can move forward. Her signature is on file. She gave us permission to make medical and financial decisions on her behalf. That's when I understood. They hadn't just planned to steal my house. They'd already done it. Those papers I'd signed 3 weeks ago weren't insurance forms. They were legal documents giving them control of everything I owned. And I'd signed them myself. Trusted my own daughter and handed her the knife she was now sticking in my back. "I need a drink," Clarissa said. I heard footsteps, the refrigerator opening, glasses clinking. "Relax," Martin said. "This time next month, we'll be sitting on a pile of cash. You can buy that SUV you wanted. Maybe we take a trip somewhere warm. Hawaii. The Bahamas. Celebrate our good fortune." "Our good fortune," Clarissa repeated, and I couldn't tell if she was agreeing or questioning. "Hey." Martin's voice softened, turned gentle in that manipulative way of his. "I know this is hard. But your mother had a good run. She raised you, you turned out great. Now it's time for us to think about our future. Our kids' future. That's what parents are supposed to do, sacrifice for their children." The hypocrisy was stunning. He was using my own sacrifice as justification for robbing me. I stood there in my nightgown, one hand pressed against the wall to keep myself steady, and felt something shift inside me. The hurt and betrayal were still there, sharp and deep. But underneath them, something harder was forming. Something cold and clear and absolutely certain. If they wanted to play games with paperwork and signatures, fine. I could play that game too. I backed away from the door, moved carefully across my bedroom floor. My purse sat on the dresser. I pulled out my cell phone, the one Clarissa had bought me last year, said every senior needed one for emergencies. She'd shown me how to use it, taught me about contacts and text messages. She'd also forgotten I was a fast learner. I pulled up Harold Freeman's number. He'd given it to me years ago, told me to call any time day or night if I ever needed help. It was 11:47 p.m. I didn't care. I typed out a text message, my trembling fingers somehow steady enough to hit the right letters. "Harold. Need your help. Emergency. Can you come by tomorrow morning early? Before my daughter wakes up. I'll explain everything. Please. Eunice." I hit send and watched the message disappear into the digital void. 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "I'll be there at 7 a.m. Are you safe right now?" I typed back, "Yes. Just heartbroken. I'm sorry, Eunice. We'll fix this. I promise." I set the phone down and climbed back into bed. The voices downstairs had stopped. I heard footsteps on the stairs, Martin and Clarissa heading to the guest room. The house fell silent again. But I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and started planning. They thought they'd won. Thought they'd outsmarted a sick old woman who trusted too easily. They had no idea what was coming. Harold Freeman showed up at 7:15 the next morning, driving his old pickup truck. I'd been watching for him from the kitchen window, coffee already made, my hands wrapped around a mug to stop them from shaking. When I saw his truck turn into my driveway, I felt something loosen in my chest. Help was here. I wasn't alone in this. He knocked softly, and I opened the door before the sound could wake anyone upstairs. Harold looked older than I remembered. More gray in his hair, deeper lines around his eyes. But those eyes were still sharp, still that same steel blue that never missed a detail. "Eunice," he said quietly, pulling me into a brief hug. "Tell me everything." We sat at my kitchen table, and I told him. Every word I'd overheard, every suspicion I'd had, every moment over the past 6 months when I'd felt something was wrong but convinced myself I was being paranoid. Harold listened without interrupting, his cop face on, neutral, focused, absorbing every detail. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and rubbed his jaw. "The papers you signed. Do you remember what they looked like?" "Blue folder. Maybe 10 pages. Clarissa said they were insurance forms. Did you keep copies?" I shook my head. She said they'd mail me copies after processing. They never came. Harold pulled out a small notebook and started writing. Okay. Here's what we're dealing with. If what you heard is accurate, they've likely had you sign power of attorney documents and possibly property transfer paperwork. The notarization makes it trickier, but not impossible to challenge. Can we fight it? We can. But Eunice, here's the thing. Legal battles take time and money. Months, maybe years. And they're stressful as hell. There might be a better way. I leaned forward. What way? He looked at me carefully. How do you feel about cameras? That's when he explained his plan. Small, hidden cameras placed strategically around my house. Not in bedrooms or bathrooms. Harold was clear about that being illegal. But in common areas where I had every right to record. The living room. The kitchen. The office where I kept my important papers. If they're planning what you think they're planning, they'll slip up, Harold said. People always do. They'll say something incriminating, or we'll catch them going through your stuff. Once we have video evidence of fraud or elder abuse, we take it straight to the DA. Let the law handle it. Is that legal? Recording them without permission. In Georgia, you're allowed to record in your own home. One-party consent state. You're the one party, and you're consenting. Everything we capture will be admissible in court. I thought about it for maybe 5 seconds. Do it. Harold spent the next hour setting up 3 cameras. One tucked behind a plant in the living room. One hidden in the kitchen near the ceiling, disguised as a smoke detector. One in my office, positioned to catch anyone going through my desk or filing cabinet. He showed me how they worked on his laptop. Wireless, motion-activated, uploading everything to a secure cloud storage that only he and I could access. Even if they find the cameras and destroy them, we'll still have the footage, he explained. How much is this costing? Nothing. Consider it a favor from an old friend. Harold. Eunice, you took me to junior prom when I was too nervous to ask anyone else. You danced with me even though I stepped on your feet 6 times. We're even. I felt tears prick my eyes. Real tears this time, not from hurt but from gratitude. In a world where my own daughter was betraying me, this man I'd known since high school was still showing up. Thank you, I whispered. He squeezed my hand. Now here's the hard part. You have to act normal. Pretend everything's fine. Let them think their plan is working. For how long? However long it takes to catch them. Could be days, could be weeks. Can you do that? I thought about all those years working 2 jobs while pretending I wasn't exhausted. All those times I smiled through pain and kept going because Clarissa needed me to be strong. I can do that, I said. Harold left before anyone woke up. I washed our coffee mugs, put them away, and started preparing breakfast like nothing had happened. Like my world hadn't just tilted sideways. Over the next 2 weeks, those cameras caught everything. Martin going through my filing cabinet when I was supposedly napping. Clarissa on the phone with nursing homes, asking about availability and costs. The 2 of them in my kitchen late one night, practicing my signature with tracing paper. Planning their timeline. Discussing how to convince me the nursing home was my idea. Harold called me every few days with updates. We've got enough, he said after the 2nd week. More than enough. Grand theft, elder fraud, forgery. This is serious felony territory. What do we do now? That's up to you. We can go to the police right now, start criminal proceedings. Or. He paused. Or we can wait until they make their move and catch them in the act. Make it impossible for them to talk their way out. I knew what he was suggesting. Wait until Thanksgiving. Let them show their hand completely. Then spring the trap. How do I know they won't actually put me in a home before then? Because you're going to tell them you're thinking about it. String them along. Make them think they're winning. So that's what I did. When Clarissa brought it up again, I acted uncertain, conflicted, but open to discussion. I asked questions about Greenfield residents. I let Martin show me brochures. I pretended to be a confused old woman who was starting to see their logic. They ate it up. I watched them exchange satisfied glances when they thought I wasn't looking. Watched them count their money before they'd even stolen it. And every night, I downloaded the camera footage to a flash drive. Harold made copies. We documented everything, built our case piece by piece, hour by hour. On Thanksgiving morning, Harold called one more time. You ready for this? I've been ready for weeks. The police are standing by. Soon as you give me the signal, they'll be there in 5 minutes. You've got backup, Eunice. You're not alone. I know. Thank you, Harold. For everything. Just doing what's right. Now go cook that turkey and show them what happens when they underestimate a woman who raised a daughter on her own. I hung up and looked around my kitchen. My beautiful kitchen where I'd baked 1,000 pies and packed 1,000 school lunches and somehow held together a life that kept trying to fall apart. This was my house. My home. The place I'd fought for and sacrificed for and poured my whole heart into. And I'd be damned if I was going to let them take it without a fight. Thanksgiving morning felt different this year, and not just because I knew what was coming. The sky was that perfect autumn blue, crisp and clear, with leaves swirling in the yard like they were dancing to music only they could hear. I stood at my kitchen window watching the sun come up, my hands steady as I tied my apron. No trembling today. Today I had purpose. The turkey went into the oven at 6. 20 pounds of potential evidence, I thought with a bitter smile. I'd stuffed it with my mother's cornbread dressing recipe, the one she taught me when I was barely tall enough to reach the counter. Every ingredient measured with care. Every step performed with precision. If this was going to be my last Thanksgiving in this house, and I was determined it wouldn't be, then I'd make it memorable. I made sweet potato casserole next, layering the mashed potatoes with butter and cinnamon, topping it with marshmallows that would brown perfectly in the oven. My hands moved through the familiar motions while my mind stayed sharp, alert, waiting. The camera in the kitchen hummed quietly above me, recording everything. Insurance, Harold called it. I called it justice. Around 8, I heard footsteps upstairs. The kids were awake, their excited voices carrying through the old house. They had no idea what today would bring. Part of me wished I could protect them from what was about to happen, but they needed to see the truth about their parents. Better now than years from now when the damage ran deeper. Clarissa came down first, wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater that probably cost $300. She looked rested, refreshed, like someone without a guilty conscience. "Morning, Mom," she said, kissing my cheek. Her lips were cold. "Smells amazing in here." "Just doing what I do best, baby." She poured herself coffee and leaned against my counter, scrolling through her phone. I watched her in the reflection of the kitchen window. She was texting someone, that little half-smile on her face. Probably Martin, probably something about timing, about when to bring up the nursing home conversation. Let her plan. Let them both plan. I had plans of my own. Martin appeared around 9, already showered and dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt like he was going to a business meeting instead of Thanksgiving dinner. He nodded at me. Not a good morning, not a greeting, just a nod like I was hired help. "Coffee ready?" he asked. "Help yourself." He poured a cup and joined Clarissa at the counter. They whispered to each other, throwing glances my way. I pretended not to notice, kept basting the turkey, kept playing the role of the oblivious old woman who didn't know her family was circling like vultures. The morning crawled by. I cooked, they pretended to help, the kids played in the living room. Everything felt normal on the surface, but underneath, tension hummed like electrical wires about to snap. Around 11, Clarissa set down her coffee cup with purpose. Here we go, I thought. Mom, can we talk for a minute? Of course, honey. What's on your mind? She exchanged a look with Martin. He gave her a small nod. Permission. Like she needed his approval to talk to her own mother. It's about what we discussed last time. About Greenfield residence. I wiped my hands on my apron slowly, buying time, letting the cameras capture every moment. The senior home? Assisted living, she corrected gently. We really think it's the best option for you. Martin stepped closer, his salesman voice activated. We've done all the research, Eunice. It's a beautiful facility. 24-hour nursing staff, activities every day, meals prepared by a professional chef. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. It sounds expensive, I said carefully. Don't worry about the cost, Martin said quickly. Too quickly. We'll handle everything. All the paperwork, all the finances. You just need to say yes. Because they'd already forged my signature. Already transferred my property. They just needed me compliant, quiet, out of the way so they could finish the job. I don't know, I said, letting my voice waver. This is my home. Henry and I built our life here. Clarissa's eyes got wet. Actual tears, or at least a good imitation. I know, Mom. And we're not trying to take that away from you. We're just worried. What if you fall? What if something happens and we're not here to help? You're never here anyway, I said quietly. The words hung in the air like smoke. Clarissa flinched. Martin's jaw tightened. That's not fair, Clarissa said. We have jobs, responsibilities. I know, baby. I'm sorry. I'm just feeling emotional today. I turned back to the stove, stirring gravy that didn't need stirring. Let me think about it, okay? Let's just have a nice Thanksgiving dinner first. I could feel their frustration radiating behind me. They'd expected me to cave, to agree, to make this easy. But I'd spent my whole life making things easy for Clarissa, and look where that got me. Sure, Mom, Clarissa said finally. We can talk after dinner. After dinner. After they softened me up with wine and nostalgia. After they positioned themselves as the caring children making a difficult decision for my own good. But I had other plans for after dinner. I served lunch at noon, laying out the spread on my grandmother's tablecloth. Turkey golden brown, gravy smooth and rich, every side dish perfect. The kids' eyes went wide when they saw all the food. Even Martin looked impressed, though he'd never admit it. We sat down together, and for a moment, just a brief, painful moment, I let myself remember what this used to feel like. Family dinners when Clarissa was young. Henry carving the turkey, Clarissa chattering about school, me passing dishes and soaking in the warmth of having everyone I loved in one place. That feeling was dead now. They'd killed it. Martin dominated the conversation like always, talking about real estate markets and some big deal he was closing next month. Clarissa nodded along, playing the supportive wife. The kids ate quietly, well trained not to interrupt when the adults were talking. I just watched. Studied them. Memorized every detail because this moment mattered. This was the last time we'd sit together as a family before everything changed. After the main course, Clarissa started clearing plates. Her movements were quick, efficient, like she wanted to get through this meal and move on to the real agenda. Martin checked his watch twice. Impatient. Ready to close the deal. Mom, Clarissa said as she brought out the pecan pie, have you thought any more about what we discussed? Actually, I said, standing up from the table, before we get into that, there's something I want to show you all. Martin frowned. Eunice, we really should. It won't take long. Just a little video I put together. A family project. Clarissa looked confused. A video? Come on into the living room. Kids too. Everyone needs to see this. I walked toward the television, my heart pounding but my steps steady. Behind me, I heard them following, their footsteps reluctant and heavy. The kids ran ahead, excited for entertainment. If they only knew. I picked up the remote control, felt its weight in my palm. This small piece of plastic was about to become the most powerful weapon I'd ever held. Everyone sit down, I said. Get comfortable. This is going to be very interesting. They settled into my living room like it was any other family gathering, completely unaware that their entire world was about to explode. Martin took the armchair, spreading out like he owned it. Clarissa perched on the edge of the couch, still holding her phone, probably planning to half-watch whatever boring home video she thought I'd made. The kids sprawled on the floor, their faces sticky with pie. I stood by the television, flash drive in hand, and felt a strange calm wash over me. This was it. The moment Harold and I had been building toward for 2 weeks. No going back now. So, I said, keeping my voice light and cheerful, I've been learning about technology. Harold Freeman. You remember him, Clarissa? He used to take me to dances in high school. Well, he's been teaching me about security cameras and video editing. Martin's expression shifted slightly. Just a flicker, but I caught it. Suspicion. That's nice, Mom, Clarissa said absently. But what does that have to do with? Everything, baby. It has to do with everything. I inserted the flash drive into the TV, and the screen flickered to life. The first clip loaded, black and white footage from the camera in my office, timestamp glowing in the corner. Martin appeared on screen, moving through my office at 2 in the morning. The date showed October 15th. He moved with purpose, opening my filing cabinet, pulling out documents, photographing each one with his phone. My property deed. My insurance papers. My bank statements. Everything. The room went silent except for the sound of digital camera shutters clicking on the recording. What is this? Martin's voice had gone hard. Security footage, I said calmly. Keep watching. It gets better. The next clip started. Clarissa this time, sitting at my kitchen table 3 weeks ago. The papers spread in front of her, the ones she'd told me were insurance forms. The ones I'd signed without reading. But the camera had caught what she did after I went to bed that night. She practiced my signature. Over and over. On tracing paper, comparing it to my real signature, perfecting the forgery. Her face was completely focused, concentrated, like she was working on some important art project instead of planning to steal from her mother. Clarissa gasped. Mom, this isn't, I was just. Quiet, I said. The best part's coming. Do you think family loyalty means letting people steal from you? Drop your answer in the comments and make sure you're subscribed because you won't want to miss how this ends. The third clip played. Audio only this time, but the quality was crystal clear. That conversation I'd overheard, the one that started all of this. Martin's voice filled the room. After Thanksgiving, she goes straight to the nursing home. Clarissa's response, Martin, don't say it like that. It's not like we're throwing her away. Oh, come on, Clarissa. The woman can barely walk. We'll tell her it's for her own good. You said she already signed those papers, right? Yes. She thought they were for her health insurance renewal. Perfect. The property will be ours before Christmas. I watched their faces as they listened to their own voices. Martin had gone pale, then red, sweat forming on his forehead. Clarissa's hands were shaking, tears streaming down her cheeks. The kids stared at the TV, confused but understanding that something very bad was happening. When the audio ended, I turned off the television and faced them. "So," I said quietly, "would anyone like to explain?" Martin stood up fast, his chair scraping against my floor. "This is entrapment. This is illegal. You can't record people without their permission. Actually, in Georgia, I can record anything that happens in my own home. One-party consent state. I'm the one party. Harold made sure everything was legal before we started." "You're twisting this," Martin said, his voice rising. "We were trying to help you." "By forging my signature? By photographing my private documents in the middle of the night? By planning to steal my house?" "It's not stealing if you signed the papers. Papers you lied about. Papers you told me were insurance forms. That's called fraud, Martin. Elder fraud, specifically. Detective Freeman tells me it's a felony." Clarissa found her voice. "Mom, please. Let me explain. It's not what it sounds like." "Then what is it?" "Because it sounds like my daughter and her husband planned to rob me blind and dump me in a nursing home so they could take my property and my money." "What part of that did I misunderstand?" "We were going to take care of you. In a facility 30 minutes away while you sold my house for $400,000? That's what you call care?" Martin's hands clenched into fists. For a second, I thought he might actually hit me. But he was smarter than that. Hitting an old woman on camera would be assault on top of everything else. "This is insane," he said. "You're a paranoid old woman who's clearly confused. I have the papers you made me sign." Harold's lawyer confirmed their power of attorney documents and property transfer forms, not insurance papers. "You notarized them using a fake witness. That's forgery and fraud. You can't prove." "I have video evidence of everything. Your face is clear in every shot. The timestamps match your phone records. Harold already subpoenaed them. We have you cold, Martin." His face went from red to white in seconds. He looked at Clarissa, then back at me, then toward the door like he was thinking about running. "Don't," I said. "Harold called the police 20 minutes ago. They're already outside." As if on cue, I heard it. Sirens. Faint at first, then growing louder, coming up my street. Clarissa started sobbing. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was Martin's idea. He said we needed the money. He said you wouldn't mind." "I wouldn't mind having my home stolen? Being thrown in a nursing home like trash? Clarissa, listen to yourself." The kids started crying too, scared by the sirens, by their mother's tears, by the tension crackling through the room. I wanted to comfort them, but I couldn't. Not yet. This had to play out. Martin backed toward the door. "Clarissa, we're leaving. Right now." "You're not going anywhere," I said. That's when he made his move. He lunged for the flash drive, trying to rip it from the TV. But his hand was shaking so badly he couldn't grip it properly. He yanked on the cord, the TV wobbled, and then his eyes rolled back. His knees gave out. He dropped like a stone. The sound of Martin hitting my floor was like a gunshot in the quiet room. Clarissa screamed. High-pitched and raw, the kind of scream that comes from pure panic. She threw herself down beside him, shaking his shoulders, slapping his face, her hands frantic and clumsy. "Martin! Martin, wake up! Oh God, somebody help!" The kids were crying harder now, huddled together in the corner, watching their father collapse. I stood there, flash drive still in my hand, and felt absolutely nothing. No satisfaction. No triumph. Just cold, empty certainty. He'd fainted. The shock of being caught, the panic of facing real consequences, it had been too much for him. His body had simply shut down. Part of me wanted to call an ambulance. But the police sirens were getting louder, almost at my driveway now. Let them handle it. He's breathing, I said calmly. He just fainted. Happens when guilty people realize they're trapped. Clarissa looked up at me, her face a mess of tears and mascara. How can you be so cold? He could be dying. He's not dying. He's just scared. Like I was scared when I heard you planning to steal my home. Like I was scared when I realized my own daughter had betrayed me. I didn't, we weren't. She couldn't finish the sentence. The lies had run out. Car doors slammed outside. Footsteps on my porch. Heavy, official footsteps. The doorbell rang, followed by 3 hard knocks. Savannah Police Department. I walked to the door, my legs steady despite everything. Opened it wide. 2 uniformed officers stood on my porch, Harold Freeman just behind them in plain clothes. His face was grim, but his eyes were kind when they met mine. "Miss Eunice," one officer said, "we got a call about a possible fraud situation." "Come in, officers. I have everything you need to see." They filed into my living room, taking in the scene. Clarissa on the floor, still trying to wake Martin. The kids crying in the corner. Me standing by the television with the flash drive. Harold moved to Martin first, checking his pulse, his breathing. "He's fine. Just passed out. Probably need paramedics though, just to be safe." One officer called for an ambulance while the other approached me. "Ma'am, can you explain what happened here?" I handed him the flash drive. "Everything's on here. Video evidence of my son-in-law going through my private documents. My daughter forging my signature. Audio recording of them planning to commit fraud. Detective Freeman can verify the footage is authentic and legally obtained." Harold nodded. "I supervised the camera installation myself. Everything was done according to Georgia law." The officer took the flash drive carefully, like it was evidence, which it was. "We'll need to review this at the station. Miss Eunice, would you be willing to give a formal statement?" "Absolutely." Martin groaned. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. He tried to sit up, but Clarissa pushed him back down. "Don't move. You fainted. Just stay still." He looked around the room, the police, Harold, me, and reality crashed back into him. "I want a lawyer," he said hoarsely. "I'm not saying anything without a lawyer." "That's your right," the officer said. "But I need you to understand, we have evidence of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit elder abuse. Those are serious charges. It's all a misunderstanding." "Save it for your lawyer," Harold said quietly. "Martin Prescott, you're under arrest for attempted fraud against a senior citizen, forgery, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent." The Miranda rights filled my living room like a prayer. Clarissa sobbed louder, reaching for Martin's hand, but the officers pulled him up and away from her. They cuffed him, actual handcuffs, metal clicking against metal, and led him toward the door. The paramedics arrived as they were taking him out. They checked him over, said his vitals were stable, he'd probably just had a panic attack. They offered to take him to the hospital anyway, but Martin refused. He wanted to go straight to the police station, probably hoping his lawyer could fix this mess before it got worse. It was already worse. It had been worse the moment he decided to steal from me. After Martin was gone, one officer turned to Clarissa. She was still on the floor, her whole body shaking. "Ma'am, we need to ask you some questions." "I didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. "We have video evidence of you forging your mother's signature." "That's not, I was just practicing." "For what purpose?" She couldn't answer. The lies had completely run out now. They didn't arrest her right there. Said they needed to review all the evidence first, determine her level of involvement. But they made it clear she shouldn't leave town. She was under investigation. Her life as she knew it was over. The kids clung to her, crying for their daddy, asking why the police took him away. She tried to soothe them, but her words came out broken and useless. I watched from across the room, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt something crack inside me. Not sympathy for Clarissa, she'd made her choices, but grief for my grandchildren, who were learning the hardest lesson of their young lives. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most turn out to be the ones who hurt you worst. After the police left, Harold stayed behind. He made tea, cleaned up the living room, gave me space to breathe. Clarissa took the kids upstairs, and I could hear her talking to them in low, urgent tones. Probably trying to explain what their father had done. Probably trying to spin it somehow. "You okay?" Harold asked, handing me a cup of chamomile tea. "I don't know. Ask me tomorrow." "For what it's worth, you did the right thing. Hard thing and the right thing are usually the same." "Doesn't feel right. Feels like I just destroyed my family." "They destroyed themselves, Eunice. You just pressed play." Harold left around dinnertime, promising to call tomorrow with updates. The house felt too quiet after he was gone. Thanksgiving dinner still sat on the table, cold and forgotten. All that cooking for nothing. I heard Clarissa coming down the stairs. Her footsteps were slow, heavy. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, her face swollen from crying. "Mom," she started. "Please. Can we talk?" "What's left to say?" "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. Martin convinced me it was the right thing." "Don't blame him for your choices. You signed those papers knowing they were fake. You practiced my signature knowing it was fraud. You planned to put me in a home and take my property. Those were your decisions." "I was scared. Martin said we needed money, that this was the only way." "There's always another way. You could have asked me for help. You could have told me you were struggling. Instead, you lied and stole and betrayed me." She collapsed into a chair, her head in her hands. "What happens now?" "That's up to the district attorney. But Harold says Martin's looking at serious prison time. You too, probably. The kids will be fine. They're young. They'll recover. But they needed to see the truth about their parents." Clarissa looked up at me, her eyes desperate. "Can you forgive me?" I thought about that question for a long moment. Forgiveness. Such a complicated word. People throw it around like it's easy, like you can just decide to forgive and everything goes back to normal. But some things break beyond repair. "Maybe someday," I said finally. "But not today. And not until you've faced real consequences for what you did." She started crying again. I turned away, unable to watch. Part of me still wanted to comfort her, to hold her like I did when she was small. But that little girl was gone. The woman sitting in my kitchen was a stranger wearing my daughter's face. "You should take the kids and leave," I said quietly. "Go stay with a friend. I don't want you here tonight." She nodded, too broken to argue. 20 minutes later, I heard them loading into their car. The kids were still crying. Clarissa's voice was gentle, soothing, trying to make them feel safe in a world that had just become terrifying. Then they were gone, and I was alone in my house. My home. The place they'd tried to take from me. I walked through the rooms, turning off lights, putting away the uneaten food. It would have fed us for a week. Instead, it would go in the trash. Thanksgiving dinner, sacrificed on the altar of truth. The police came back the next morning with more questions, more forms, more procedures that turned my life into evidence. I gave my formal statement at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd fed Clarissa breakfast every morning of her childhood. The detective, a woman named Rodriguez with kind eyes and a no-nonsense voice, asked about everything. When did I first suspect? What made me install cameras? Could I verify the dates and times on the footage? Harold sat beside me the whole time, making sure I didn't say anything that could complicate the case. But I didn't need protecting. My memory was clear, my facts were solid. I told the truth, the whole truth, exactly as it had happened. Mrs. Davenport, Detective Rodriguez said when we were finished, I want you to know this took a lot of courage. Most people in your situation don't fight back. They just let themselves be taken advantage of. I'm not most people, I said. She smiled. I can see that. They arrested Clarissa that afternoon. Showed up at her friend's house where she was staying, read her the same Miranda rights they'd read Martin. The charges were slightly different. She hadn't planned the scheme, they said, but she'd participated knowingly. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Forgery. Attempted theft from a senior citizen. Harold called to tell me. His voice was gentle, like he was delivering news of a death. In a way, he was. The daughter I'd raised was dead. This new Clarissa, the one being booked and fingerprinted and photographed, was someone I didn't recognize. They'll both make bail, Harold said. But the trial's coming. District Attorney wants to move fast on this. Elder fraud cases get priority. How long? Could be 6 months. Maybe sooner if they take a plea deal. 6 months of waiting, wondering, reliving every moment. 6 months of lawyers and courtrooms and seeing my daughter's face on legal documents. I wasn't sure I had the strength for it. But then again, I'd raised a child alone while working 2 jobs. I'd survived a stroke. I'd caught my own family trying to rob me. I had more strength than I gave myself credit for. Over the next few weeks, I started putting my life back together. Changed all my locks, Harold's suggestion. Met with my lawyer to make sure the property transfer documents Clarissa had forged were voided. Set up a trust for my grandchildren that Clarissa and Martin could never touch. That last part was important. The kids hadn't done anything wrong. They deserved to be protected, to have something waiting for them when they turned 25. Money for college, for starting their lives, for escaping their parents' mistakes. I went to see them once, about 3 weeks after Thanksgiving. Clarissa had moved into a small apartment, sold the Mercedes to pay for lawyers. She answered the door looking 20 years older, her face hollow and gray. "Mom," she said, surprised. "I didn't think you'd want to see me." "I'm not here for you. I'm here for the kids." She flinched but stepped aside to let me in. The apartment was small, cramped, nothing like the house she'd been living in before. The kids were doing homework at a card table, their faces lighting up when they saw me. "Grandma." They ran to me, and I held them, breathed in their little kid smell of shampoo and playground dirt. These babies hadn't asked for any of this. They were innocent victims of their parents' greed. I stayed for an hour, helping with homework, reading stories, pretending everything was normal. Clarissa watched from the kitchen, her eyes never leaving us. When it was time to go, she walked me to the door. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "It meant a lot to them. I didn't come for you to feel better. I came because they need to know they have one grandparent who keeps promises." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. And I'm sorry. I know it doesn't help, but I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix broken trust, Clarissa. Time might, but probably not." I left without hugging her, without any of the warmth that used to exist between us. Maybe someday that warmth would return. But right now, there was only cold, clear justice. The trial started in April. Martin went first, his lawyer trying to argue that he'd been trying to help me, that it was all a misunderstanding. But the video evidence was damning. The jury watched him sneak through my house, photograph my documents, plan my betrayal. They watched for 20 minutes in complete silence. Guilty on all counts. 8 years in prison. Clarissa's trial was shorter. She took a plea deal, 5 years with the possibility of parole after 3. Her lawyer argued she'd been manipulated by Martin, that she was a victim too. The judge didn't buy it completely, but it was enough to reduce her sentence. I sat in the courtroom for both trials, watching justice play out in slow, painful detail. People asked me how I felt. If I was satisfied. If I'd gotten my revenge. But it wasn't revenge. It was consequence. They'd made choices, and now they were facing the results. That's not revenge. That's just reality finally catching up. After Clarissa's sentencing, she turned to look at me from the defendant's table. Her eyes were pleading, desperate, still hoping for mercy I couldn't give. I looked back at her with nothing but calm certainty. This is what happens when you betray the people who love you. This is the price of greed. She turned away first. It's been 6 months since that Thanksgiving, and my house feels different now. Not bad different. Just different. Quieter. Emptier in some ways, but fuller in others. The rooms that used to echo with betrayal now echo with peace. Strange how absence can sometimes feel like presence. I wake up every morning at 5:30, same as always. Make my coffee. Sit at the kitchen table and watch the sun come up through the magnolia tree in my backyard. Henry planted that tree the year we got married. 53 years old now, still blooming every spring like nothing can stop it. I've started baking again. Not for diners or money, just for myself. Pies, mostly. Apple, pecan, sweet potato, all the recipes my mother taught me. I bring them to church on Sundays, share them with the congregation. People tell me I should sell them, make a business out of it. But I'm done working. These pies are gifts now, not obligations. Harold stops by twice a week for coffee. We sit at my table and talk about everything and nothing. He tells me about his garden, his grandkids, the mystery novels he's been reading. I tell him about the birds that visit my feeder, the shows I've been watching, the quiet contentment of not having to look over my shoulder anymore. You ever regret it? He asked me last Tuesday. Pressing charges? Sending your daughter to prison? I thought about that question for a long time before answering. I regret that it had to happen. But I don't regret doing what was right. That's a good answer. It's the only answer I have. The grandkids visit once a month. I pick them up from their temporary foster home. Clarissa's friend couldn't keep them permanently, so the state stepped in. They're doing okay, the social worker says. Therapy twice a week, doing well in school, adjusting to their new normal. When they come to my house, we don't talk about their parents. We make cookies instead. Play board games. Go for walks in the park. I'm teaching them how to play chess, how to garden, how to bake. All the things Clarissa never had time for when she was chasing money and status. Last visit, my grandson asked me a question that stopped my heart. Grandma, why did Mommy and Daddy do bad things? I knelt down to his level, looked into his sweet, confused face. Because they forgot what's important. They thought money mattered more than family, more than love, more than doing the right thing. Are they bad people? No, baby. They're people who made bad choices. There's a difference. Will they come back? Someday. But it'll be a long time. He nodded, processing that with the simple acceptance kids have before the world complicates everything. Okay. Can we make chocolate chip cookies now? We made cookies. Life went on. That's what it does. I've been working with my lawyer to set up that trust for the kids. It's got a good amount in it now, the money I would have spent on helping Clarissa and Martin if they'd just been honest with me. Plus some from selling my mother's old jewelry, some from my savings. When they turn 25, they'll each get enough to start their lives right. College money, down payment on a house, a cushion for emergencies. And they'll get this house too, eventually. Not their parents. Them. I made sure of that in my will. Clarissa and Martin will never see a penny of what I've built. But these kids, innocent, sweet, damaged kids, they'll inherit something worth more than money. They'll inherit the knowledge that sometimes doing the right thing means standing alone. That justice matters more than keeping the peace. That you don't owe loyalty to people who betray you, even if they're family. Those are hard lessons. But they're real lessons. The kind that stick. I set the table for dinner every night. Just one plate now, one glass, one set of silverware. But I always put out a second setting across from me. Empty chair, empty plate, just sitting there. For Henry. I talk to him sometimes while I eat. Tell him about my day, about the grandkids, about how our daughter turned out to be someone we never raised her to be. I like to think he hears me. I like to think he understands why I did what I did. She made her choice, I told him last night. And I made mine. That's how it works. The empty chair doesn't answer, but I feel his presence anyway. Warm and steady and approving. Henry always believed in doing what was right, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Some nights I still hear their voices. Not real ones, just memories playing in my head. Martin's smooth lies, Clarissa's guilty apologies. The sound of betrayal echoing through walls that have heard everything. But then I remember the sound of justice too. The click of handcuffs. The judge's gavel. The jury foreman saying guilty in that clear, certain voice. Both sounds are part of this house now. Part of my story. I don't try to forget them. You can't heal from wounds you pretend don't exist. I've started writing everything down. The whole story, from beginning to end. Maybe someday the grandkids will want to know what happened. Why their parents went to prison. Why their grandmother chose prosecution over forgiveness. When they're old enough, I'll give them these pages. Let them read it and decide for themselves what it means. Let them learn that love without boundaries isn't love, it's permission to be hurt. People in town look at me differently now. Some with pity, poor Eunice betrayed by her own daughter. Some with respect, strong Eunice, who fought back. Some with confusion, cold Eunice, who sent family to prison. I don't care what they think. I did what I had to do. Protected myself. Protected my home. Protected the legacy I want to leave for kids who deserved better than the parents they got. The truth is simpler than people want to believe. Sometimes there are no villains in expensive suits or heroes in shining armor. Sometimes there's just an old woman standing in her kitchen, pressing play on a recording, and watching her family fall apart because they thought she was too weak to fight back. They forgot one important thing about me. I survived losing my husband at 37. I survived raising a daughter alone while working 2 jobs. I survived a stroke that the doctors said might kill me. I survived 74 years of life throwing everything it had at me. I wasn't going to let my own daughter be the thing that finally broke me. Yesterday I got a letter from Clarissa. First one since the trial. The envelope sat on my counter for 3 hours before I had the courage to open it. Inside was a single page, her handwriting messy and rushed. Mom, I understand if you never forgive me. I understand if you hate me. I just need you to know that I see it now. What I did. What I became. Prison gives you a lot of time to think, and I've been thinking about all those mornings you made me breakfast before school. All those nights you came home exhausted but still helped me with homework. All those sacrifices you made that I took for granted. I threw all of that away for money I didn't even need. I'm sorry. I know sorry isn't enough. But it's all I have. The kids ask about you every time I call. They say you make the best cookies. They say you teach them things. Thank you for not turning your back on them. Thank you for being the grandmother they deserve. Even if I don't deserve to be their mother anymore. Love, Clarissa. I read it 3 times, folded it carefully, put it in a drawer with all the other important documents in my life. I don't know if I'll ever write back. Don't know if I have anything to say yet. But I didn't throw it away either. That has to count for something. This morning, I made myself a full breakfast. Scrambled eggs, bacon, toast with butter and homemade jam. Sat down at my table, said grace like my mother taught me, and ate slowly, savoring every bite. The house was quiet around me. Not the heavy quiet of secrets and lies. Just the peaceful quiet of a space that belongs to me again. Mine. Earned. Protected. Safe. After breakfast, I pulled out Henry's old record player. Put on some Billie Holiday, let her voice fill the rooms with something beautiful. I danced a little in my kitchen, just swaying really, my knees too old for anything fancy. But it felt good. Felt like living instead of just surviving. The doorbell rang around noon. I opened it to find a delivery man holding a huge bouquet of sunflowers. My favorite. Eunice Davenport? He asked. That's me. He handed me the flowers and a small card. I thanked him, closed the door, set the bouquet on my kitchen table. The card was from Harold. Because brave women deserve beautiful things. I called him immediately, voice thick with gratitude. Harold Freeman, you're too much. Not nearly enough, he replied. You've been through hell, Eunice. Figured you could use some sunshine. We talked for 20 minutes about nothing important. He invited me to dinner at his place next Friday. Said he'd been practicing a new lasagna recipe and needed someone to tell him if it was edible. I said yes without hesitation. Maybe there's something there. Maybe not. But either way, it's nice to know that kindness still exists in the world. That not everyone is looking for an angle or a profit. That some people just want to see you smile. After we hung up, I stood at my window, looking out at the street where I'd lived for 47 years. Same magnolia tree. Same cracked sidewalk. Same house that had seen births and deaths, joy and betrayal, love and loss. But different too. Because I was different now. I wasn't the woman who trusted blindly anymore. Wasn't the mother who sacrificed without boundaries. Wasn't the grandmother who'd let family loyalty override justice. I was just Eunice. 74 years old. Survivor. Fighter. Woman who pressed play and changed everything. Some people might call what I did cold. Heartless. Unforgiving. They might say family should get second chances, that love means overlooking betrayal, that mothers are supposed to protect their children no matter what. But those people weren't standing in my bedroom, listening to their daughter plan their destruction. They weren't signing papers that would steal their home. They weren't facing a future in a nursing home while their family profited from their pain. Those people don't get to judge me. Nobody does. I did what I had to do. What anyone with self-respect would do. I protected myself when nobody else would. I chose justice over comfort. I chose truth over keeping the peace. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. The sun's setting now, painting my kitchen orange and gold. I pour myself a glass of sweet tea, add a slice of lemon, sit down at my table. The empty chair across from me holds Henry's memory. The sunflowers on the table hold Harold's kindness. The silence around me holds my hard-won peace. This is my life now. Smaller than it used to be. Quieter. Lonelier in some ways. But mine. Completely, absolutely, undeniably mine. Tomorrow I'll visit the grandkids again. We'll make pumpkin bread and read stories and pretend the world isn't complicated. Next week I'll have dinner with Harold and maybe start writing a new chapter in a life that's had too many endings. But tonight, right now, I just sit here. Grateful. Peaceful. Free. Because sometimes justice doesn't roar like thunder. Sometimes it doesn't come with dramatic courthouse scenes or satisfying revenge. Sometimes justice is just quiet. It's the sound of your own breathing in your own house. It's the knowledge that you stood up for yourself when everyone expected you to lie down. It's the certainty that you did the right thing, even when the right thing broke your heart. I take a sip of my tea and close my eyes. Somewhere out there, Clarissa is learning that actions have consequences. Martin is learning that charm doesn't work on prison guards. The kids are learning that you can survive anything if you have one person who refuses to give up on you. And me? I'm learning that you're never too old to start over. Never too weak to fight back. Never too broken to heal. The clock on my wall chimes 7 times. Another day ending. Another night beginning. Another moment in a life that keeps surprising me with its resilience. I whisper to the empty air, to Henry's memory, to God, to whoever might be listening, some justice doesn't need a jury. Just timing and truth. The words hang in the air like a prayer, like a promise, like the final note of a song that's taken 74 years to finish. And then, because life goes on whether you're ready or not, I stand up. Wash my glass. Turn off the lights one by one. Lock the doors that now have new locks. Check the cameras that Harold left installed, just in case. This is my home. These are my rooms. This is my peace. And nobody, not my daughter, not her husband, not anyone, is ever taking it away from me again. If you believe that standing up for yourself is never wrong, even when it costs you everything, type justice in the comments below. And if this story moved you, if it made you think about your own boundaries and your own worth, then please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because there are more stories coming. Stories about people who refused to be victims, who chose themselves when everyone expected them to choose family, who learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is press play on the truth. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to protect yourself. That it's okay to choose justice over peace. That it's okay to be the villain in someone else's story if it means being the hero in your own. Drop a comment telling us what you would have done in Eunice's shoes. Would you have pressed charges? Would you have forgiven? Would you have had the courage to stand alone? We want to hear from you. Your story matters. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. Until next time, remember, revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just breathes. Sometimes it just survives. And sometimes that's enough. Subscribe now. Turn on notifications. Don't miss the next story that might just change the way you see family, loyalty, and the power of knowing your worth. This is your reminder that you're stronger than you think, braver than you feel, and worthy of a life where trust isn't taken for granted, it's earned. See you in the next one.